We're going to continue the debate discussion with my next guest, Tom Bevan of Real Clear Politics, who's here to offer his take on what went on in Denver last night, and also to talk about this controversy over conservatives and the polling we've been seeing in the presidential race this year. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, Jason. Great to be with you.
So you had a wonderful opening to your column on the debate. You wrote, Barack Obama's campaign team spent last week talking up Mitt Romney's debating skills and talking down the president's. Turns out they were right on both counts. Tom, where has this Mitt Romney, the one we saw last night in Denver, been since he won the nomination?
That's a good question. Look, I think it was a couple things. Obviously, Romney came fully prepared. Barack Obama did not. And I think the format did help Romney in terms of being able to engage directly with the president, have a back and forth. So I don't know that this was some all-new Romney that showed up last night and suddenly he's this new, better 2.0 version of himself that's going to campaign this way through Election Day. I think he's pretty much still the same guy. I just think he happened to have a very strong night, and Obama had a very bad night.
Okay. You also listed some of the topics that didn't come up in last night's debate. Bain, 47% remark, Mitt Romney's tax returns. Any theories as to why that was?
No, and this was one of the things that if you watched MSNBC, you know, the cheerleaders over there, they were absolutely beside themselves that Obama didn't get after Romney and counterpunch effectively using some of these things. And these are themes that he's pounding on the trail sort of on a day-to-day basis. The auto bailout in particular was one that I thought, you know, he mentioned it in passing at the very beginning, never came back to it. This is an issue that has hurt Romney, and Obama's leveraged pretty effectively, particularly in Ohio, where he's leading by about 5.5 points now. So I think it was just a case of Obama being kind of listless and disengaged and clearly not on his game. And as a result, there were a lot of missed opportunities on his part, I think. Okay.
Now, you're the co-founder of Real Clear Politics, which, of course, is famous for its aggregation of polls taken across the country. So I wanted to get your take on this polling controversy. Conservatives say a lot of these polls aren't reliable, and some people said it has a little more to do with the fact that Romney's been trailing for much of the race, that something else is going on here. Should people be concerned about the quality of these polls?
Look, this is a tough area to get into, but you know, the short answer is no. I think, you know, we've been doing this 12 years. There's only been one instance where the polls have been totally, all of the polling data, publicly available polling data has been wrong and missed the mark, and that was in New Hampshire in 2008. As you remember, Barack Obama won Iowa, went into New Hampshire with about a 6 or 7 point lead, according to all the polls. And then in the last, 48 hours of that race, you remember Hillary Clinton sort of broke down. Had that moment where she almost cried. You had a guy stand up at a rally of hers with a sign that said "Iron My Shirt," and as a result, women came out in droves and voted for Clinton. She ended up winning that race by 3 points. One of the reasons that the pollsters got it wrong is because they weren't in the field for the last 24 hours, so they didn't catch that late swing. Beyond that, look, I think this is just a case where conservatives weren't liking the results of these polls, questioning the sampling. We saw the same thing, Jason, back in 2008. Where Democrats were constantly working the pollsters, working the refs, if you will, saying, you know, trying to get them to use instead of using the likely voter model, which traditionally and historically has been the most accurate model, Obama's allies were saying that's not appropriate this time because Barack Obama is bringing in all of these new voters, these people who haven't voted before, so they're not making it through those screens. Therefore, you should use the registered voter screen, which is traditionally about 2 or 3 points more favorable to Democrats and was favorable to Obama.
Okay.
In the end, that turned out to be bunk. We use only likely voter polls. Our average was 7 points in the end, and that's exactly where the race ended up. So I think we just have a situation here where, and again, you look at some of these polls. We do have in national polls, for example, we had poll come out, the Wall Street Journal poll. Your poll had it 2 points as of earlier this week. Another poll had it tied. So it's not like these polls are. There is some variance here, but it's not so dramatic that. it just it doesn't bother me, and I don't think people should be concerned about where the polls are right now or the validity of these polls. I think they're pretty accurate as giving the race, as a snapshot at a point in time.
Okay, last question. We've got about 30 seconds. Does it make a difference whether a poll comes from a media outlet like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CBS, versus a polling company like Gallup or Pew? Is one tend to be more reliable than the other?
No, not really. I mean, we're pretty particular about the polls that we include in our averages, and that's one of the criteria is, look, if it's got the backing of a big media organization, we don't just throw pollsters in there who come out of nowhere, who don't have an established track record, and also operations that, for example, in certain states, if they haven't polled that state before and suddenly they're doing polls in 12 or 15 new states. Right. That typically gives us pause. So we're pretty particular about the polls that we use. But to answer your question directly, overall, if you go back and look at historically, I think it hasn't made a difference whether, certainly Gallup's still considered the gold standard, although they've had a few misses as well.
Okay.
But by and large, I think the polling operations from individual pollsters and from those backed by media organizations have been pretty good.
Thank you, Tom. Real Clear Politics. Right. Thanks for being here.